Chris Hofer played almost all his baseball in the Interlake region, primarily for Selkirk in junior, then Grosse Isle and Stonewall in the senior ranks. He's already a member of the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame with team mates from Grosse Isle and Stonewall. And Chris's resume says he was a dangerous power hitter. Were you that kind of a guy when you went up, Chris, out or afloat?
Yeah, I tried to be. I think I usually carried a decent average, but yeah, most times you're wanting to hit the ball out of the park. That was me.
Did you find that with very different pitchers, you approached them different ways, or?
I found that as I got into it, through my junior and then senior ranks, I found I got to see a lot more fastballs earlier on in the season, and then when pitchers got to know who was who and who hit what, I got to see a lot more off-speed stuff and had to work a little bit on trying to hit some of them out of the park.
1989 was sort of a red-letter year for you. You were with Team Manitoba at the first ever National Youth Tournament in Brandon.
Yeah.
Talk to me about those experiences. What was that like?
Well, exciting, of course, for a young guy, and then again, being from a small town in Warren, I think we were about 600 people back then, and I was fortunate enough to have a buddy from school was also on the youth team with us, and a bunch of good ball players, and by that time we had, I had been picked up by a few teams for if we didn't win our league or our provincials, I was fortunate enough to get picked up by whoever had won it and travel to Westerns or Nationals, and so a lot of the guys I already had known at that time, and it was fun. It was a great experience, and that's what actually got me scouted for NBI, because I was originally going to go down south, and then I think it was I don't think John Harr was there, but Wayne Norton was at the tournament, and I had quite the tournament there that weekend. So.
Before we get on to the National Baseball Institute, what impact did that youth tournament have on you as a player, do you feel?
As a player, it was a bigger spotlight for us, compared to what I had. I mean, we had been, like I said, to Western Canadians and Nationals, but the one in Brandon just seemed to be a bigger tournament there, and the national team tryouts were held right after, and everyone sort of knew that was going on, and that there was going to be a few more scouts at that tournament for that weekend. And back then, it wasn't baseball for us wasn't as big of a draw, as far as getting drafted, or I don't even know if we were included in the draft in that time. So none of that was really on my radar. I wanted to win. I always wanted to win, so, and we did what we could to make that happen. So the whole big picture really at that time wasn't on my mind. I wasn't a student per se in school. I did good enough to graduate. I never failed a grade, but I never had the vision of, I need a degree for this, a degree for that. And so school wasn't a thing for me. And when all this attention started coming, hey, do you want to go to this school? Do you want to go to that school? I was 18, I think, at the time, turning 19, and I was like, well, I guess so. I want to play ball some more, so if that's what I got to do to play ball, then let's do that. So
you ended up going to the National Baseball Institute in Vancouver.
Correct.
From 90 to 92.
Yeah.
I know that there are probably a lot of young ball players who are very well aware of the NBI and hope one day to get there. Tell me about your experiences there. Was it difficult to fit in? Was there an adjustment?
Definitely adjustment. I had, never left Warren really, except for a week or two here to go play ball or go do something, but never moved away from home. And I was an only child at home for mom and dad, and a little tougher on them, I think, than me. I'm like, hey, I'm heading to Vancouver. I'd phone them and it'd be warm in the winter. I'd phone them from California and say we're sitting in the hot tub and just picked an orange off a tree, and stuff like that as far as the after school or after ball aspect of it. But it was pretty intensive. It wasn't what you're used to. At home, you go practice once a week, maybe once or twice, and it's you have some BP, take some ground balls, and that would be that. But out there, it was 12 months a year, and it took a little bit of getting used to being away from home, different climate, and most off for me just being away from Warren for the first time, you know, living out there, and no cell phones back then, you know. I'd get a letter from mom and, you know, send one back, and different time. So, but it was a good experience. Met a lot of great guys, and the main thing in the big picture is, I mean, a lot of lifelong friendships, you know, with guys from across the country that, you know, some of them I haven't seen since, but I've been in contact nowadays with Facebook or whatever, and, you know, a phone call here and there, you see one of them somewhere, and so the friendships made through the game are a really big thing now. Back then I wanted to win, you know, I wanted to be the best player there, and that was my goal then.
Over the years, it's 30 plus years now since you were at the NBI, the training and preparation of young ball players has gotten better and better and more intensified.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that from your experience, you would have a word or two for young players who are considering the NBI, and so could you provide some advice now to those ball players?
Well, I think nowadays none of these young ball players that are even being looked at for something like the NBI. The NBI, I don't think it even there's the same type of program, but it's not the National Baseball Institute anymore. But I think players, when they get to that age, even draft age now, which is younger than when I left home, they've already concentrated on what they need to do, and, you know, who they need to talk to, and the motions they need to go through, and the steps and the training, and now it's, you know, nutrition, and there's just so much more to it nowadays. And I think for a player that's highly skilled at any certain sport, they're working that 12 months a year, I think, nowadays. Whereas before it was hockey, ball, you know, volleyball, basketball at school, whatever sport, track, whatever sport was at that time of year, you played it, you know, and
particularly so when you were from a small town like Warren, because there weren't many others there who were doing it.
Yeah, correct. And you know, with ball, we didn't have AA or AAA ball back then. It was, you know, Warren had the best team because they had 7 of the best guys in the Interlakers. You know, the next year, while Stonewall got some new guys, or Balmoral, whoever it was, wherever the, you know, elite players lived, that was who had the best team that year. So now, you know, there's kids driving 2 hours for a practice to play on a AA team or a AAA team somewhere, you know, for hockey, whether it be hockey, ball, volleyball, club volleyball, all that stuff. Everyone just seems to be so much more focused on one sport.
There seems to be a lot of specialization at younger and younger ages.
Yeah.
More pressure on kids to pick a sport and devote their whole life to it. How do you feel about that?
I disagree 100%. I mean, you look at some of the athletes that got turned out from, you know, back in the day, and you know, they still hold records in whatever sport they played, but yet they played 4 or 5 sports throughout the year. Summer was ball, winter was hockey, you know, spring and fall were usually an indoor, volleyball, basketball, whatever, at school. Now, you know, there's winter hockey, summer hockey, spring hockey, fall hockey, 3-on-3 hockey, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's indoor batting cages and facilities, and, you know, training and specialization facilities for, you know, said sport. And they just seem to focus on one. And I disagree with it wholeheartedly. It doesn't give you different aspects of different sports. You know, there's team sports where it's more of a team as a whole. There's team sports where you count a little more on one individual, and then there's individual sports. So if you do all of them, you get a little view of what it's like to be on each, and it helps with whichever one you're going to do at that time of the year, you know.
The only thing that I can think of is Gordie Howe was a pretty darn good baseball player.
Well, I know, and I've got a lot of friends that are, you know, their pictures are hanging on the wall in here that played 1 or 2 or 3 sports as well, and they were pretty good at all of them. But now it's you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time. Oh, you had a choice whether to play hockey or ball or football or baseball, or, you know, you had a choice. Well, why couldn't the choice be all 3? You know, until you get to, there's a certain level where, yes, you have to make that choice, but not when you're 8. You know, that's not when you decide that. you decide that when you're, I'd say, late teens, you know. And if you're training for one sport, you're still going to be physically fit and ready for another, you know. So that's my take on it, yeah. When
you were developing in baseball and coming up, you as I gave a very brief part of your history earlier, you were successful. You moved on into the senior level and enjoyed even more success. I want to talk about senior baseball just for a moment, and your experiences there and some of your favorite memories from those championships and those great teams you played with.
Yeah, we don't have enough time, and I probably can't think of them all. You know, senior baseball, you know, is the heart and soul of ball in Manitoba, I think, and you know, we had some great teams throughout the province, and you know, in our league in the city. And then when we ended up going to provincials and westerns and all that stuff to play, there's some really good ball players playing senior ball. And oh man, there's, you know, just from game to game, I could give you probably a story from every game we played, let alone every tournament we went to. And you know, and again, it's just getting back to the people you meet, you know, you play against them or with them or for them. And win, lose, or draw, at the time, you know, you're a little upset. I was upset if we lost, and didn't like to lose.
It sounds like your favorite championship was the next one.
Yeah, that's right. The next one we were going to win.
Tell me about people who helped you along the way, people who influenced your development as a player and perhaps even as a person. And I realize that's a loaded question because you don't want to forget anybody.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I don't know how far back. I mean, my first coach would have been out of Warren, probably Forbes Stewart, you know, when we were just young guys. And Forbes couldn't coach today, we'll put it that way. And neither can I, really, you know, because that's my mentality too, is when, you know, when you're on the ball diamond, you're mine. You know, and we're here to practice ball, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do it this way because that's the right way. Now let's work on it. And I think he really got me started, you know, with that attitude, and you know, to be the best we can be, and we were. There was one year we went undefeated right throughout the year, and you know, and for several years after that, we didn't win every year, but you know, win the championship every year. But we sure won a few in a row, and won a few in that era. So. You know, Forbes was at the start, and you know, I've had some great coaches and mentors throughout, and you know, it's funny for me when you say throughout my development. I never considered it that. I would just play ball when it was summer, you know, and just try to be the best you can be. I didn't train per se, you know, to do this or do that. I just, you know, I had coaches work on mechanics with me, but you know. Man, Gord Ledachowski, Scott Kwasnitz, Jerry Falk, Gladwin Scott, Larry Mudge.
A lot of them are on the walls here at the Hall of Fame.
They are, a lot of them are.
Soon going to be.
Yeah, you know, and unfortunately some of them aren't with us, but you know, they were lifelong friends after that, you know. And we were kids, you know, when they started with us, a lot of us, and all through life, you know, they were still friends, you know, and not friends you'd hang out with every day, but when you seen them, you know, it was sure good to see them.
As a baseball player and as a hockey player, Chris Hofer just went out and did it awfully well. Congratulations on your induction into the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.